Okay, 6:02 and call meeting to order. First off is the previous minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve those. There's no questions. Rich made a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Policy, we have nothing for policy.
Correct.
Okay. Recognition of visitors. We have 2 visitors.
We have 2 visitors and nobody online.
You guys. Did you guys want to speak?
No, just.
No, we're just here to,
Okay. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Rebecca Bryan,
Welcome.
Sylvester.
Okay, do we need to prioritize anything?
We do not.
Okay. So we'll go right on to the school spotlight.
Hi. So Courtney's pulling my thing up, but, oh, you did.
Let me introduce you.
Sure.
This is Katie Forian. Katie Katie has multiple certifications. She's has an elementary license, and she also has a 7 through 12 math license. And she's always willing to take on a challenge. She's a real team player. And tonight she is going to talk about Modern Classroom, which was showcased at In Service a year ago, last year. And Katie took up the challenge and is running her 8th grade math class using the Modern Classroom approach. And I thought it would be nice for her to come and talk about that tonight.
So I did a virtual mentorship program at the end of last year that the SU offered, and it was from like May to the end of June. And so that's where I got this idea from and figured out how to run this. So Modern Classrooms is a structure, it's research-backed, and it's a structure that has blended instruction in the classroom. So the students are watching mainly teacher-created videos. Right now, they're all teacher-created, some of them maybe not. And that's how they're getting their main lesson in my classroom, is by watching the video. They have a note page that they use while they're watching it. And it's also self-paced, so students are moving through the lessons at their own speed and when they reach mastery. So they have to show mastery on the end of lesson formative assessment before they can move to the next lesson. So I have put in here what my first unit looks like, because that's, I think, the best way to explain it. So this up here is actually what the students have. They have a printout of this, and it's also posted on my Google Classroom page. And so each of the individual components of the lesson are there. So for example, where it says 1.1, that's the video and note page that the students have to watch. And then the next piece is a hands-on practice. And then there's an additional practice. And then there's a cut and paste they do, and then the mastery check. Each thing is labeled. So there's a must do activity, should do activity, and aspire to do. Must do is they have to complete it. Should do is something that they should complete if they can, but the whole purpose is that students might be in different places, or students might be absent, or they might need extra time, so they might not get to every single activity. And then the aspire to do activities are extensions. So if somebody goes through everything and is needing more work, it's already kind of pre-differentiated for them. And this right here, when I made it, I envisioned it taking a week. So far it's taken 2, because we had some other things happening like STAR testing and stuff. So we're on the 2nd week of it, but we'll be done it by Friday. And then this right here is like my lesson layout, just a different way to show you. So there's the video and the notes, which is must do. There's a hands-on component. So the actual practice is supposed to be always collaborative. So they're still talking together and working together. While they're working, I'm working with small groups or working with them. So the only piece that's really completely individual is the video and then the mastery check at the end. And there is, if they don't reach mastery, there is a review practice page that they would complete, and they would meet with me in a small group, and then they would do some additional work and then try again. So I have linked all my pieces in here. So there is a video. I don't know if you want to show a piece of it here.
Hi guys. Today we're going to be doing a lesson on translations. So our learning target for today is that I can perform translations on a coordinate grid. So what is a translation? A translation is one of the first geometric transformations we are going to talk about. and is a geometric transformation that moves every point in a figure a given distance in a given direction. So as you are doing a translation, every point must move the same distance in the same direction. And an informal way to talk about a translation is to call it a slide. So this picture right here is showing figure A sliding over. Each point slides over to make figure B. So a little bit of vocabulary we're going to need to know for this upcoming lesson.
So I'm
A
not
pre-image is the original.
but it's in there if you want to watch more of it. But there's also, each video has captions, so the students can turn on captions if they don't want to listen to me, which some of them have. But they also can see it and hear it at the same time. And they have a copy of that note sheet that they're taking notes on. So they're filling in missing pieces from my video while they're doing that to be practicing, like learning the vocabulary and learning the words. And there is some places in it where there's quiz questions, so it stops the video. They have to answer a quiz question before they can keep going on. It tells them if they got it right or wrong. And then there are some places that I tell them they should pause the video and try one on their own and then restart the video. And we did a practice of this before we started this unit with just like general classroom expectations.
Hi guys.
Thank you. Sorry. This is what the hands-on practice looks like. It's just a copy of it, but what the students would do is they trace the shape and then they perform 4 different translations on that shape and they put the coordinates. There is another question on there asking them to like make the connection. So this is like an exploratory activity that I would normally do at the beginning of the lesson anyway. And then they have a practice sheet that they complete. They can work together on this if they need to. But they do the same thing. They make the translation, they put their coordinates in. There's 4 questions that they have to complete on this practice one. And those are both must do. So they have to do the introductory activity and they have to do this practice lesson. And then when they are done both of those, they have a choice to do additional practice or they can go to the mastery check, which is what this is. So it's just one short question, checking their understanding. They have to do it completely independently. They have to move away from other people. So I do have an area in my room that they can go to, or they can just, my class is really small, so they also could just sit at a desk away from other people. But they know what the objective is. They know what they have to do to meet it. And then immediately I check it and tell them either, yes, you met it, you can go to the next lesson, or no, here's what we need to do to revise it. And I do have like a rubric on the back of it explaining to them what it means to be master. And then I have this whole class tracker that I project every day because the purpose for me is that students are knowing where each other are so that they're working together. So I took all the names out, but all the kids that are on lesson 1 their names are up there. So they know who else is working on that and they can work with them, or they might need help and I might be working with someone. So somebody who's on lesson 2, they could check in with them and have them help them if I'm busy or they have a quick question that they need. And I have all the dates. Those are the dates that they should potentially be done the lesson by. It's suggested, but there's certain dates that are hard. So like Friday, we're having a whole class quiz. They need to be ready for that quiz. They know that. So we've been making sure our lessons are on track for that. And it is also color coded. So the blue is must do, red is should do, and then the yellowish is aspire to do. So they know which ones they have to make sure they get done before Friday so they're ready for the quiz. And then this is just what my Google Classroom page looks like for the students. I also have each individual lesson labeled within there so that they know which ones they absolutely have to do, which ones are optional. And within each thing, I have like the specific directions of like what your next steps are. I also have a binder in my classroom with all of the pages. So when they finish watching a lesson, it'll say, go get lesson 1.2 from the binder, and they go get it and do it and then go back to the next one.
This is fantastic. I'm so excited to see you present on this. I still haven't been able to watch a lesson that is coming from one of our teachers for this model. So when I come back, I'm going to see your lesson. I have 2 questions. Or 2 asks of you. Can you talk a little bit about the impact that this model has for kids who have attendance issues and like what that looked like before, what that will look like under this model?
Yeah.
And then say a little bit more about when the kids are independently doing the videos and you're pulling those small groups, how you identify who and what you're doing in those groups.
Sure. So with the attendance piece, I'm hoping that what will happen is that students that are having to miss school, and are able to stay on track even if they're not here. So everything is posted online. I have a letter I'm planning to send home that I was gonna send home today and I forgot. So it's gonna go home tomorrow, explaining it, but it's just, I talked to the kids and everything and explained that they have access to everything from wherever they're at. So if they're homesick for a week and they're able to work, they can complete the work. And also if they're not, because sometimes you're too sick to work, when they come back, they're starting where they're at and they're not missing all of my mini lessons. So the really great thing, or I think the really great thing is they can go back to any lesson that I've had. So if they're not sure of something or they need to review it, they can go back and watch it at any point throughout the year because these will all be there all year long. But they also can make sure that they're just hitting those really important must-do activities and getting the main thing. And maybe some of the should-dos are not happening right now. Maybe they'll happen later in the year if they have like extra time or during an intervention or like a win time. But they're still getting all of the main things. They're not missing any instruction because it's all still right there. And the other piece is when they're watching videos and working independently or working groups, I'm pulling small groups and I'm basing it off of two things. So I gave some pre-assessments at the beginning of the year on just like general math skills. And I'm pulling small groups on that for intervention. So it's not necessarily related directly to my classwork, just things that I know they're gonna need for the future. And some of it is based on the mastery check. So if I see there's something on a mastery check or their practice work they're not getting, I might pull a small group of them and do one of these activities or different activity with them on like translations and what it is. So I'm kind of doing two things at once, depending on what the students need.
Fantastic. I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Can you see who's done what as far as when a child watches a video? Can you see that they've watched it 2-3 times?
I don't actually know if I can see that they watched it more than once, but I can see when they've watched it.
Okay.
And I have this thing on my computer called Go Guardian.
Yeah.
So I watch what they're doing on my computer the whole time they're working, so I can see when they're on it. So I kind of like keep track myself, but I
That's
don't know that my actual program would show me if they watched it more than once.
Really neat. My other question was, I know it's really, really super new, but have you seen anybody get so excited about it that they're watching the optional stuff?
There have been some people that have done the should do activities. I'm like, yay.
Right.
So yeah, they are. The thing that they really like watching my face in the corner. It's been really fun so far for all of us. We'll adjust to that awkwardness, but there have been some of them that are doing all of them, which is great.
Is this another tool like you're just using along the side of like the, traditional, just like, lecturing in the classroom? Like, are you breaking it up and using this for some lessons, or is this really going to be the main focus, or are you pairing it with?
I'm hoping that this is going to be the main focus, but like the other day they were all working on the same thing and I could tell that no one was getting it at that point. So we stopped and we did a regular lesson in the class because that's what we needed to do. So I'll still do that when I need to. But my class is also very small. So I'm able to just pull like one-on-one or small groups pretty much the whole time.
I think it's great because somebody like I hated college classes online. It was like not my jam, and like seeing this layout, like if they ever step into that role of having to do online college classes, I think this sets them up being able to see how that's really going to work for them and what that's going to look like. So it's great.
The theory behind modern classrooms and why we brought it is very student-centered, and it's driven by their proficiency. So they're wherever their need is, rather than it being traditional where you're teaching the lesson and some kids are getting it and some kids already have it. We can get them at their learning edge in this, which I think is really cool, and it allows the teacher more time than they would ever have in a traditional model, because in a traditional model, a big chunk of that lesson time, Katie would actually be teaching. Mm-hmm. So there wouldn't be as much time for her to work with that data that she has from the small groups or the proficiency checks. So now, while they're doing that, she's got all that open space in her lesson where she can really target those needs. So this is really kind of a pilot, and I appreciate you, Katie, being one of the first ones to jump in. And I think we had about 20 teachers that did it last winter and spring, and they're kind of spread out all over the supervisory union. So they're doing it as a pilot, and we'll be looking at pulling some evidence together to see like what's the impact on student learning as a result of leaning into this kind of a pilot.
Is this something we're just focusing on in like middle and high school?
No, actually, we have some elementary classrooms. I think you have one, right?
Yeah, we have two. I had one teacher who's using it pretty fully by the end of last year for math, and is also this year. And then another teacher, she had started earlier in the school year, about midway through, so she had a lot more time to then implement. And we have another, and she's 5th grade. And then my 2nd grade teacher also started in this year.
Does this help when you get, you said you guys did that last, I vaguely remember that. When you get a group of students that are really ahead of what they need to be, this is gonna help them either even grow beyond that as well, correct?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like, there's a lot of different needs in like my specific class too. So there's a lot of, like some kids are gonna be able to do a lot of the aspire to do activities and get like way farther than they would have in a traditional, like me lecturing classroom.
I just wanna-
both ends, right?
Right,
I just want to commend her, Katie, because lots of times people will say, oh, you're ready to go back to school, or how does it feel to have the whole summer off? She spent all summer
That was,
putting
that was
this
my other
together.
question, like how is that affecting teachers on the back end and being able to?
It's a lot of
prep the
hours, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that, like, making all these videos and, that's a lot of work.
And
But then I'll have them forever.
Yeah.
Right.
That is,
You can build the library over time. Yeah.
And there, like Katie said, there might be some that it won't be hard.
Yeah.
There are some other really
Right.
good instructional videos that you could, if you needed to.
Yeah.
But the investment in this, I think that what the teachers got out of it must have been really good for them to jump into it the way some of them are jumping into it. So I'm so glad this was the spotlight this month. I'm happy to hear about this.
So probably a question for you, Lynn. Is this one of many tools that we're piloting as potentials for Portrait of a Learner? Or is this kind of what we're thinking we're gonna lead with?
And I did not go into this with this is what we're gonna lead with. This was here is one other promising practice. This wasn't anything that was mandated. It was just, here's an option that you could look at and you could consider. And what we know about shifts like this in instruction is a lot of times they're early adopters, like Katie, who jump in and say, I'm willing to try it. Even though she doesn't have any evidence of people around her doing this with success, she went through the training and was like, I'm gonna do this. What the theory is that when you have promising practices like this, you have some people who aren't quite early adopters who are a little bit on the fence. And when they see the success happening in those early adopter classrooms, they're like, hold on, wait, I wanna try that now. So we invested some of the ESSER money in this training and said, we're gonna fund, I think we might have done 20 seats twice. We might have had a January cohort, right?
There was 2 cohorts last year.
So we did January cohort and then the May cohort. So we have quite a few people doing it. And the theory is that we'll also try to find ways to spotlight those teachers and the success they're having to see if it should that grow into other places.
Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Morgan, you're up.
It'll be pretty quick tonight. I have only got one action item for you, and that is related to the VSBIT annual meeting. This is probably new for Josh. So VSBIT is the cooperative that most schools in the state belong to provide property insurance and liability insurance. As a cooperative, they have an annual meeting each year and we get to vote on who their directors are going to be. It's similar with the Education Health Initiative, which is specific to health insurance, and we'll be talking about that next meeting because I don't have the documents from them yet. Their annual meeting is October 25th in Fairleigh, and it's in conjunction with the Superintendents and School Board Association Conference. And so each year I bring to the boards the ability to give their proxy to vote at that meeting, and you can either give it to an individual who's going to be there, or you can give it to the board of VSBIT or the board of VHI. There's nothing going on at the VSBIT annual meeting, and there's rarely anything going on at the VSBIT annual meeting. VHI used to be a little more active in the past, but that's pretty pro forma now as well. And so to vote your share at the Visbit annual meeting, we'll need a motion tonight either to, as I said, appoint the School Board Insurance Trust Board to vote it for you, or you can give it to a person. Lynn and I are both going to be there. Mary Niles, who's the SU chair, we think is planning on being there.
No, you
I
went
don't know
last
if
year.
Aku's gonna be there.
Last year I did it.
Or
That
you
was
did
the
it.
last year, yeah.
Is anyone from this board planning to attend that?
I'll be out of the country, so.
So you could appoint any one of the three of us.
Or you could appoint the board to, the Visbit board, because it's really just accepting minutes and reports.
Sure.
Good, yeah, Mary Niles do it.
Very nice.
Okay, so that would be a motion to appoint Mary Niles as authorized representative to appear and vote on behalf of the board at any and all meetings of the members of the Vermont School Board's Insurance Trust or any adjournment thereof.
Motion. Okay, Devin made the motion. All those in favor? I'm out.
And I will bring the VHI annual meeting motion to your next meeting. I don't actually have the packet from them yet, and so I don't want to tell you nothing's happening at that meeting until we confirm that. And then unless you have any questions, that's all I have this month. Start monopolizing your time starting next month.
Lynn?
Okay, so I'll jump in, starting with personnel. So I don't believe anything has changed since this went out. Under hiring, I have 2 for board action. Gordon St. Hilaire for 0.6 FTE, middle school math interventionist at Enosburg Middle School. And Annalise Perez, Beth, at Richford Junior High School.
Well, I learned something, that it's the first name is your real last name, and the second name is your mother's last name. So if you come from a Spanish-speaking country, it's the first one that's, if you are only having one last name, that you go right back. They taught me that.
That's
Okay.
funny. Yeah,
So-
Could you say the name for me?
I gotta find it. I have to read
It's
it.
under F.
Um,
Trivia for
Under F. True he ho.
Okay. All right,
I
so.
have to look, she wrote a cheat sheet for me.
Okay, yeah. So 0.6 FTE, so 3 days a week librarian, 2 days a week paraeducator. So I'd ask the board to make a motion on those 2.
Do I have a motion? Sarah made a motion. All those in favor?
Resignations at Enosburg Elementary School. Caitlin Schiffoletti, Liddy, preschool teacher. I don't even think I need to, I'm not gonna ask you for action on that one. That was a resignation she accepted and then resigned before we even started, so it really was a broken contract. I will ask you to accept the resignation of, no, actually, same thing. Caitlin Paquette resigned 0.6, the library para position that you just filled. So also did that after contracts were signed, so you don't need to make a motion. We do still have some open positions that I'll just say out loud in case anyone is watching. We're fully staffed at Cold Hollow. Enosburg Elementary School has a preschool teacher position open. That was the one that I just talked to you about that resigned really late in the year. So I would like to publicly commend Jen, Melissa Wood, and Ms. Leslie, who is our preschool teacher, who did a fabulous job of going from 2 classrooms to 1 classroom, very last minute, and they found a way to make it work with the staffing that they had. We are hoping that we'll be able to fill that position and split those into smaller classes if the right person appears. So we're looking for that, a paraeducator and a behavior technician at Enosburg Middle School. They're fully staffed. Enosburg High School is looking for a math teacher, a head custodian, and a paraeducator. Richford Elementary still has an opening for a school counselor. Richford Junior Senior High School, a paraeducator and a behavior technician. And there is also a head of maintenance position that would cover all of the Enosburg schools, Enosburg Elementary, Middle, High, and Cold Hollow. And that's all I have. Any questions on staffing? Nothing under students, except those fabulous pictures from the first week of school. There's been a lot going on in our schools. I've been able now to visit, I think 3 of our schools I've been able to have my September visits with. And saw some really great stuff happening in classrooms. I will have, I'll talk a little bit more about opening next, but Heather was going to be here to talk with you about LEAP's summer programming, so I think I'm gonna go there instead. Is that in the same slideshow?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try to give you Heather's presentation. There might be some things that I can't answer for you, but I'm gonna do the best I can. She was not feeling well today. So we had a conversation about celebrating some of the really fabulous things that are happening in our LEAPS program in the summer. And I think it's important to remind the board and remind community members and parents that this is a program to really be proud of. This isn't something that is available in all of our schools. I think we've had summer programming and we've had after school programming for so long. Sometimes I think it's easy for us to just take it for granted that that's something that all schools do, and it really isn't. There are a lot of schools that don't have any of that kind of programming in the summer or after school. So our students are really fortunate to be able to have this 5-week summer program opportunity in each of our communities, and they did some really fabulous things this summer. So each of the schools, let me just mention the middle school piece first. So in terms of middle school, we have, I think it's Berkshire and Montgomery attend Richford Junior Senior, and Sheldon and Bakersfield attend Enosburg. So we have just the 2 middle high school programs, but then all of the elementary schools this year had a program. So each of the schools identified the themes that they were going to work on, and they had, each week was a different theme. They had guests come in. You can see kiddo in the front holding the snake with 802 reptiles. They have the Vermont Institute of Natural Sciences come in, 4-H, the foundation, Notch. They had guests from the library, sled dogs, the game warden with the K9 unit, Mounts Around Vermont. They also participated in several field trips. Fewer field trips than we have had in the past, but still some really fabulous field trips. Kids were able to go to state parks, the movie theater. They were able to go to the Lee Walker Memorial Field, local libraries, the National Guard Air Base, Granby Zoo, Jay Peak Water Park, and hiking and biking trails. Heather's giving you a sample of what was happening one of the weeks. And I think that it's important for this to be out there. I'll be honest with you, I can't read what that says from here.
It's disgusting discovery.
That's right. That's kind of like the layout of the week at that school. And it's all the connections to learning related to discussing discoveries. That was kind of the theme of the week. And I think it's important. Sometimes people look at this, and I heard members of the community refer to our after school program as childcare, and it's so much more than that. Like, there are true connections to the learning that's happening during the day in the after school and in the summer program, and kids are getting a lot of enrichment opportunities. So this is one example that Heather put in there so you can see the lesson plan for the week. That is a sample can you read the heading of that one, Courtney?
Acid-base reaction experiment.
So that was a sample activity that came out of one of our middle and high school camps. You can see all the connections to the learning. These were examples of, they did it a little bit differently this year. They ran mini camps at the 2 middle high school programs, and kids could sign up for mini camps and then they could alternate to another mini camp. So they were able to do hiking. Heather talked about students that did hiking. They went on 4 hiking adventures in that 1 week and just had a blast. Mountain biking, stream life. They worked learning around local ecosystems and animals in our local streams. Magic, the Gathering. This was something that looks like it was pretty specific to math. Paper mache aviation. Those kids were able to go to the Franklin County Airport and visit Habitat for Aviation, and they got to learn about aviation science and different careers that happen at the airport, which is, pretty close to here, and it's an incredible resource for our kids in our schools. They did a bake-off, and I think for the first time, there was a bake-off competition between, I think, Enosburg Middle High School and Richford Junior Senior High School, where they all went to one campus, and I think they all had like the same amount of time, the same ingredients, and they had to come up with a challenge. And
Cupcakes.
and then people voted on the cupcakes. At a fishing club, they did PVC marshmallow launchers, a Dungeons and Dragons mini camp, and mad scientists, and their drone club as well. So those seem pretty exciting to me. I know if my kids had been participating in camps like this, they would have been excited to have those opportunities. So this is just giving an example of what does our attendance look like in FNESU over the years. So when you think about the total number of students that we serve about 1,940 students. It was 1938 last October 1st. So of those, 528 of those students were enrolled in our summer program. And you can see that we've steadily increased. We saw a decrease right around the pandemic years, but that has been steadily increasing participation for each of the last 4 years. We started looking at, we're going to be bringing you more data as we go through our budget work. And one of the things that we did for the NMV board was look at what's the total enrollment in our camps and how has that changed over the past 4 years? Are there any camps that we're seeing declining enrollment in or low numbers that we need to really lean into? And in your camps, either the slight decrease in like Enosburg Elementary camp. If you look at Enosburg Middle High School, you had a huge increase over the 4 years. It was a little smaller this year than last year. Good solid numbers at Richford Elementary and good solid numbers at Richford Junior Senior High School. So we're going to be looking at, right now we're in the grant. We have 5 more years in the grant, but we're going to be looking at what our operational structure is always in something like this. So one of the things that the NMV board asked for at the last meeting was, could we break this down to see what the camps are, like what's the per pupil cost of each of these camps, look at what's the total cost of the employees, and then the number of students who are actually participating in those camps. And it's really about making sure that we have an efficiency at scale still by having all of the camps on separate campuses. And if we identify that we don't have efficiencies of scale, let's have a conversation about what does that mean? Is this still might mean that we keep the structure the way it is, or we might look at, are there other ways to do this? One thing I just want to say about funding is that our LEAPS program in general is looked at very favorably at the state level. And we are the only program in the state. We were due to reapply this last year. We were the only program in the state that was allowed the opportunity. I'm not gonna remember the name of it. Maybe one of you two can. It wasn't a pass through.
It was a sustainability grant, maybe?
I think what you're talking about is that we were allowed to roll over a grant in a non-competitive.
Right.
Without having.
That, but there's a word for it. So everyone else had to apply because our numbers were so favorable and how they rate programs was so favorable. We did not have to go through that process, and they rolled over our funding for the next 5 years. So we still have that. They don't fully fund our program. It's about 50%, and we have to match the rest of that within our communities. So our programs are doing very well in FNESU. This is the attendance that was specific to Northern Mountain Valley schools. And that was attendance specific to the Enosburg-Richford schools.
That's it.
Any questions that I may be able to answer?
No, but I know that like Maple Run doesn't offer after school programming, and like talking to coworkers, they always hear like you guys are so fortunate to have that for your kids. Like over the summer, I know that St. Albans didn't do a summer program, and that put a lot of families out. And I know it's not a daycare, but I mean it does affect families on a whole other level. And we come from a high poverty area, and just be able to see these kids be able to access some stuff that they wouldn't necessarily do is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
I remember moving to Enosburg and seeing what these after school programs have, and I was just in awe. You know, kids always come home and happy. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our summer program this year in Richford, the Notch did not run. So typically we do an after school, a half day program, the Notch does the morning. This year we did full day program to pick up that piece of it. I have a large number of staff from my school that was that helped to run the program, and at least 4 people that are part of our student support team. So our school counselor, behavior specialist, our planning room person, a couple of teachers, our educators, but people that work very directly with kids during the school year in a very supportive manner and outside of the classroom also. So they were able to spend 4 or 5 weeks, in many cases it was all 5 weeks, with these kids. And a lot of the kids that attended were kids that really needed to attend because they needed to maintain those adult connections, and the consistency and the routine. So it felt like we just felt so well positioned going into the school year, having had a touch on all of those kids almost every day for 5 weeks. And it just felt like it made a huge difference. You know, connections to struggling families. Like we just sort of knew where kids were and we had an idea of where they were coming in. So it was like our dream team. Like, I mean, it was our whole student support team. It was there. It was pretty amazing.
Heather shared one anecdote. She was able to go on one of the hiking trips herself, and she said when they summited the mountain and wherever they were hiking, what's that?
It looked like Pisgah if it was the one that was in the
In the
little,
picture.
yeah, it's like, looks like it's on like Willoughby. At least that's what.
It might have been. I'm not sure which one it was, but she said there was a student that just had never experienced anything like that. And the moment that the student had at the end of the hike where they could see, like, this is the reward you get. When you get to the top, like, this is the view. And just the comments that the student shared about how exciting that was, and to know that you could do something like that here and doesn't cost any money to go do was cool. It was exposing kids to things that they might not always get exposed to in other places.
She also shared with the bake-off that the kids were so excited for the middle school bake-off that one of them even took his grandmother's recipe, I think, for the cupcakes. She shared that last week too.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
I did note, I think on the Enosburg-Richford slide that there was a slight dip in enrollment. Is that, usually I know it's always full.
Yeah.
Is that staffing?
I don't, it might have been. I think that we had some difficulty, I think, at your school.
Yeah, it was a staffing issue. We were full.
Is that why the dismissal time changed this year too? I noticed like that.
For our summer program.
Yeah.
That isn't why the dismissal time changed. But that, we did have a staffing.
Yeah. And I think there was another piece too, that we were really watching the attendance for that had to do with what Kelly was saying. We had 2 schools, one in NMD, Berkshire, and Richford Elementary, that had that Notch Leaps partnership. So I think, did you have a 5 o'clock end last year?
Yeah.
So Berkshire and Richford had an 8 o'clock to noon at the Notch, and then 12:15 to 5 back at the 2 schools. And that's how the summer camps worked under that partnership. When Notch wasn't able to fund that morning part anymore, we had that conversation about it really isn't sustainable for us to try to do an 8 to 5. It didn't match what our other structures were within the supervisory union. All the other camps were 9 to 3. So was it 9? 8 to 3. So 8 to 3. So we made that shift in both Berkshire and Richford, and we expected to see a decrease because we were worried that the 3 o'clock might impact some families if there was a connection to pick up and after school. So we might have seen a little bit of a dip because of that, but when Heather was reporting on that last week, she said it was far less than what she had expected.
Was there
So I don't know if did you see any of that?
Carrie was surprised at the number of students that did attend.
Okay.
Was there a change with transportation? I want to say if they were busing. I felt like we were busing was, you have
We don't have
busing.
buses.
So that's a point that we're always kind of contending with because that is not in our budget. There's no way we can afford busing, and we have had busing in one location. It's not super equitable, and it's something that we've talked about. We need to shift away from that because it's not something we're able to offer. in other places, and I think that's the one remaining place that there has been something that we'll think about.
There was not enough staff, certainly, to do an 8 to 5. There wasn't enough.
That's a long
It's
summer.
well,
It's
and
just-
the hours,
That's
and
so
the
long.
hours also.
Right.
Too many hours.
It's too, I think under the grant, it's too long.
Yeah.
So in terms of the 24-25 opening, I'll talk about the adult piece of it, and then I'm gonna ask the principals when we get to the principal segment to just talk about each of their own individual openings and share some insights with the boards about how that happened. So I will say for the 24-25 opening, we had our summer leadership academy for all of our principals and our central office directors. And we tried to model with our principals what we're doing with our teachers. So we got ourselves into needs-based professional learning teams for a good portion of that summer learning time. And I think that was received pretty well from principals. They're welcome to add in comments about that if they would like. And those are going to be year-long needs-based professional learning teams that the principals will be on. Our structure this summer was 2 days together in June, and then there were some principals that had to go to certain trainings in July for our shifts to the science of reading literacy programs for both Amplify and say that again? MyView. It jumped right out of my head. Amplify and MyView. And we also had training around the SEL resource, Wayfinder. I think we presented about that before. So one of the things I'll say about Wayfinder is we did the Wayfinder training with school leaders, and then each school had an opportunity for Wayfinder training in their building. And the feedback that Callie, our SEL coordinator, received from staff around that SEL training was overwhelmingly positive. And she's received emails from teachers that were maybe previously reluctant about seeing themselves as teaching social emotional learning, self-regulation, other pieces of emotional intelligence. Now, like, really favorable that they see the relevance of it and they see how easy these lessons are to use and how strong this resource is. So that felt really positive because the resource shift is not always an easy thing. I think also I get positive feedback around the rollout of both of the new literacy programs. There's definitely a learning curve, but I know someone shared with me yesterday that a teacher sent an email with a photo and it had to do with a lesson that they'd done in one of our literacy programs. It was someone that was not super excited about leaving what they're previously doing, and they were really excited about something that had just happened in literacy, and so excited that they want to share it with one of the curriculum leaders. So I'm going to take that as a positive. We had our convocation day at the end of August, and that day was also set up in a needs-based format, so everyone was able to do surveys and identify what are the areas that I feel like I need to work on. All were centered around our board goals and the work that we're collaborating on across the supervisory union. So everybody has a group that's in one of those 5 domains, and they're going to spend the majority of their professional learning time with those same people, learning about that same thing together for the year. So I think that was also something that was well received because it wasn't as prescribed. It was more relevant for everyone because they got to have say and choice. And I know that some of the leaders here serve on the committee that helped to design the new professional learning model, and a lot of thought and a lot of time went into planning for that. And I have real high hopes that is going to continue to land well with people. I got a couple of emails from people that said, can we think about doing this beyond this year, which is the plan? Because they got excited about 2 of the options and wanted to know that if they went this way this year, that they'd be able to go and do the other thing that they have an interest in for next year. So I'm excited about the start with that, but would love to hear from principals.
And the feedback that I got from the teachers at EES just were so rejuvenated after convocation. Lynn did an outstanding job with her energy. And then they just loved the format and they felt we really pertinent to them and they got a lot out that day. All the feedback I got was positive.
So that's all I have. So we can hear about opening from principals.
Great, yeah, this is Randy Kelly.
All right, so everything is informational. The thing that I would really like to highlight that certainly obviously relates to our opening is, and something we started to really work on last year in preparation for this year, was the connections that we're making between particularly our pre-K and our kindergarten, how they're working together. Typically, pre-K has been its own animal, even though it's in our building. We're really trying to make a much more solid and shorter bridge between pre-K and kindergarten, so those teachers are working more closely together. A lot of that work, we did a couple of big planning sessions, day-long planning sessions over the summer, and then one in June while we were still in school. And we've also pulled in our family engagement coordinator, and so part of that work has been to really engage families, so that we are getting our families, the families of our youngest kids in as early as possible to help them understand this is who we are, this is what you can expect when you send your children to school. These are the relationships that we are really trying to build. And so we are starting to we have our first one is at the end of September. We're doing pre-K, K family, like a family event once a month that is informational. So this first one will be an hour, first thing in the morning, and we are having the Notch come. So there'll be somebody every time that will be doing some kind of, it's not just a presentation, but this will be working on scheduling. So families will be able to work on making a schedule with their kids. This is what it looks like at home. This is kind of what it looks like at school. So that they get a greater understanding of what the school day looks like, and then also how they can get supported at home if they're in need of that, and then the resources from the Notch. So it's a way for us to help make some connections to the resources that might be available for families who may need those resources, or who might just need an idea how to get their kid to bed on time, or brush their teeth, or, do whatever. So we have a number of those, one a month planned for the whole school year. We have families come in kindergarten for kindergarten on the first day, pre-K teachers to kindergartners, and then kindergarten teachers met with the kindergarten families to talk about expectations. We put them all on the bus so that they can understand the bus rules from the bus driver. So just trying to do as much as we can to proactively reach out and connect with them and get them on board, because school can be a scary place for all of them.
I love that. Is this the first one, the one in September? Or
Yeah. Yeah, so we did our family kinder meet and greet, and then we also did something separate for pre-K. But we'll be doing September, I think. 20th. And then it's the 24th. What is it?
September 20th.
20th. Something else happened. So the Notch will be there. I think this is one of the Notch. And they'll be working on schedules.
I'm interested to hear about the engagement and, how many grants you guys get, because that's really great. I love that.
Great. Yeah.
It was all informational. We had a strong start. Our in-service was focused mostly on new initiatives in the SU. A lot of time was spent on that, like Richard Picture and Wayfinder. And Richard Picture is the app that we're going to be using to track the new graduation requirements under Portrait of a Learner. And it's also going to house the PLP for 6 through 9. So we spent a lot of time with that. We did a welcome back to school night. And so that we could talk to parents about the new grading in high school and as well as the new graduation requirements for 9th grade, and then just for students and families to meet teachers and get to know the building. At the end of the first day of school, we always do a debrief with everyone, and I did a fist of 5 on the work. Fist is the worst start of school you can imagine, and 5 is the best, and most of the numbers were 4s. So I thought that was a positive start of the year.
Jen?
Again, we had this wonderful start to the school year. I worried a little bit because we have Wayfinder, as Beth was mentioning, my view, and a stress on number corner for our math. So we had a lot going on, but teachers really took all of it on. The professional development they got at convocation, and then throughout the week, they were really energized. As Lynn had mentioned, we had a representative from Wayfinder come in. We have, teachers are loving Wayfinder. It's great. Our counselors go in and do a lesson during the week, and ahead of time, they let the teachers know what they're doing, and teachers then choose for lesson that or activity they have to do during the week. But now we're finding they're doing 2-3 activities that are linked to the Wayfinder and the main goal of the week. That, and the kids are loving it. It's so engaging, so energizing. So that's going really well. And again, with we started our STAR assessment, and the 4th and 5th grade teachers and I have 2 new 5th grade teachers, were shocked because the kids came in like the first week and they're like, when are we doing STAR? They just want to see how they're doing already, you know. So that's really encouraging that there's this assessment and they want to check on themselves. So they really have taken ownership for that. And we have the month of September to do that, and we're actually all done. And teachers reflected today on scores and who the best support for the students, depending what area they ended up, what their needs are. So that has been a great start to the year.
You have an action item on your report?
Yes, and I do have my handbook on there.
Okay, motion to accept that. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, Matt?
So one action item I had was a proposed trip to France, but our French teacher is sick, so she's unable to come. So when you're over at EFHS in October, she will make the presentation then. The other action item is the student and staff handbooks for the middle and high school. So I will pause.
All right, entertain a motion to accept them.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, who's made the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I've had a pretty ecstatic start of the year. I'm so happy with how this year is starting, and there's a lot of different things going on. But one of the things that I thought a lot about in the spring was there were a lot of things that we just needed some tweaking. You know, it was my end of my second year, my assistant principal's second year. Now she's in the middle school, and the middle school had some leadership turnovers. So it was like we had to shore everything up, I thought. And I was thinking about myself professionally. The phrase that came to mind was upping my game. And then I was thinking, as a school, we can really up our game. So the teachers have heard me say it a lot. Sometimes they'll even say it back. The way I'm upping my game is, and I'm like, yes, awesome. So some of the collective things we've done are, so far, a lot of it's been about culture, behavior, routines. I think the bigger issues were around routines and consistency through the school. So we made a few big shifts this year. One is by creating the 9th grade team. So we have we have 5 teachers because social studies is split, but we have a team of teachers who are focusing on the 91 9th graders and how to make it a positive and consistent transition for them. One of our goals was, I would say, our stretch goal when we did our leadership work this summer was around that consistency and routines, because following that comes the ability to have much stronger, education and really be able to push students. So the freshman team put together, they call them their 5 non-negotiables, and they have really clear procedures for when you can leave the classroom, and if so, for what. And just some of that simple stuff has created a sense of calm. I also have, all my teachers are doing, and me, and the administrators are doing a 30-minute hall duty once a week. So there's not always someone walking in the halls, but during every half period, there's someone walking in the halls for a big chunk of it. And I've never gone to the bathroom so many times and had it completely empty. And on the times when I've gone in, it's not a phone booth, it's not a cell phone booth. So that vibe is really different. I moved the Student Support Center, which is our behavior response team, like a planning room, and moved them up to the 2nd floor because we have a wonderful hallway with a bench at the end that was kind of a bench of mischief. So now they are right on top of that. And again, the feeling is different. Teachers are talking about a better vibe. I hope I'm not projecting their feelings. I think it's genuine. We also, we talked as a leadership team and a little bit about as a staff. By leadership team, I mean my teacher leadership team. What are we going to do about cell phones? And we had all these different ideas, and we're not going to buy yonder pouches. That's crazy expensive. We did buy a few cases where teachers could put phones, but ultimately the place I went to is with them, because I think they felt similarly, is if we do the thing we said we'd do last year, it might actually work if we all do it. And the thing was, just you see a phone, you take a phone. Done. Just done. And there's a little bit more to it than that, but people got really consistent about it. And we talked about how do you do it, what are some procedures you can use. If you want the hall pass, give me your phone, you get the hall pass. So the phone, that's part of why the bathroom isn't a cell phone booth. So just working on things that emphasize this is a place of learning. This is learning and calm too, right? Because we had some vandalism, students not being in the classrooms in the spring, and I thought, this is not why I became a principal. I want a place where kids feel productive and happy and are doing good learning, and so we just worked on tweaking some basic but important procedures, and it's beginning to ripple out. So now I'm kind of like teasing, like, okay, in about a month, we're really going to talk about the big portrait of a learner changes, because I think we're going to be ready, having some experience under our belt. It's going to be like when we do something together and we feel successful, look what we did. Took try 3 on cell phones, but it's really making a difference, right? All right, now we're going to give this academic, piece a try. So upping our game. I couldn't be happier. I love my school. I love my job. So, yeah. And the middle school, just to be fair, the middle school is working a lot on the intervention and support structure. So there's been a bit of a past practice around using paraeducators a lot to manage that stuff. And Heather Hawkins, who was in the high school, is now the middle school assistant principal. She's big into data. I rely on her for help thinking about data, and she is helping that whole team, the whole middle school team, do what does she call it? Action research in practice. Let's try some things and see how they work and how that affects it, so that the intervention team is less about pulling out or grouping kids and more about how are we approaching all middle schoolers within the classroom. It's going to be a bit of a shift, but I think it's a great shift. And I think she's as happy to be in the middle schools as I am in my job too.
I'll add to the piece, Matt's going to bring the French trip the next time you go there. In our pre-meeting, you had asked me about the trip last year to Costa Rica. Spoke with Todd today about coming with students from both schools next month to present to the board. How did that trip go? What was some of the learning that happened on that trip? So that'd be a good time for you to ask about the next trip when you hear from the trip that happened last year.
And I recommended to Carolyn, who's my French teacher, to reach out to Todd. I think she has, I don't know, I hope she has, but I will mention it again.
Thank you. Is up Nate? Was Nate coming in?
No, he doesn't have anything.
It's his birthday.
So today's his birthday?
Mine's 2 days ago. Today's his.
Oh, well, happy
birthday party.
Happy birthday.
I turned 50. I turned 50.
Is that your birthday too?
2 days ago.
Oh.
With my platinum, so,
It's a big one.
made it.
Okay, board business, next meeting's October 8th, Enosburg High School. And I don't think we have any, do you have anything for board business, anybody else?
Do I need to put that on the agenda? The Costa Rica trip?
I'll put it under mine.
Okay, anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Rachel made the motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.